Hello, externs. Lisa Patterson here. This week, we are talking about AI and technology, which is an incredibly big topic to tackle. So I'm going to keep it sort of limited, at least for this unit, but I wanted to make sure that we got some material to you because it is such a huge burgeoning issue right now. And we're hitting a time in history where we're going to look back at this as the moment that things changed. And so just to get us all on the same page, I wanted to make sure that you were getting some information about generative AI, especially, but generally thinking about the ethical issues around it, the use of it, how it might be able to help you, how you maybe you are using it, maybe you are avoiding it. So just to get a sense of getting that in front of you. Um, I am of an age where I have seen pretty much the gamut of technological evolution. So, a lot of what was happening when I was coming through school had been the way everyone did everything for 100 years, right? Except for maybe the typewriter. The people were still handwriting. Things hadn't changed that much. Computers were not a thing that everyone had on their own. When I was in college, I hand wrote, or even I had like a manual typewriter that I wrote papers on. And one of the reasons I even have the career that I have is that early in my career, I ran an agency that typed people's papers for them on computers because nobody had their own computer. And that's how I learned how to do resumes, because we used to do people's resumes. And there was no way to format a resume with a computer except by going to an agency. And so I've gone from, I'm not quite old enough to have been programming on punch cards, um, but that wasn't too far before me, to the point now through the internet, getting going from, not having email to having email, um, not having cell phones to having cell phones. And so it's really kind of, for me, just like, okay, well, here's the next thing. No big deal. But I think for some people, it can be the first seismic shift they've seen in a while to sort of look at what's happening with AI and what may be going on with even virtual reality and some of the other big steps that we're taking. So it's really an interesting time and I'm fascinated by watching it. So I am by no means an expert. I am not a science person. I'm not a programmer, but I'm sort of an interested bystander. And I do always try to jump into some of these things and try them out. So what I'd like to do is actually start off with just a couple of notes for you. And then I'm going to refer you over to one of two things. You can watch both of them if you want. One is a podcast actually to listen to, and one is a video of a panel of people talking about AI. And they know much more than I do. So I'd really like you to hear from them. But before I just throw you into the deep end, I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about, what I'm talking about when I am referring to the things that I talk about. So I'm going to open up a few slides here. And let's present. That would be great. Okay. So just a few things. This is me. As you know, you will get these slides. So this is a way for you to just be able to refer back. My office hours are Tuesday and Wednesday. You can always make an appointment with me at Locke. And many of you have been doing that already. Oh my, technology. I hope it doesn't scare you too much. I hope you are embracing it cautiously. But think about, there's a lot of talk. Campuses are abuzz with, what do we do with this? What are the faculty doing? I'm sure you're seeing in class faculty who are saying no computers, yes computers, no take-home tests anymore. Let's make sure ChatGPT isn't a tool that you can use to cheat. Everyone is talking about it. What are we doing about balancing the wonderful things that AI can do for us as a shortcut, as a way to save time on things that are tedious, versus teaching people to rely on inaccurate information in terms of generating habits that are bad habits for research, and writing, not being able to do your own writing. For people who are still sort of becoming good writers, if you're having a AI write your stuff, is that going to keep it so that you can't write anymore? So everyone's sort of worried about that in terms of people who are developing their skills. And of course, down the line, everyone's kind of worried about whether or not AI is going to take over a lot of jobs that humans have always done. And a lot of people are really, really trying to look at where do the jobs or the tasks still exist that have to be done by humans? Where do we think AI is going to sort of live in its little niche? And that's the same with um, any innovation that we've had. There have been a lot of machines that have taken over human jobs, and that's not to make light of this, but we have found places where humans are needed. And so a lot of the predictions are that in the future, the humans will be the ones running the AI or designing the AI or figuring out the human-based emotional pieces or the interaction pieces. Some of the other people around us that can give you some more information, I just wanted to flag for you. We have a wonderful new person in the law school. If you haven't met her, her name is Latasha Tolles. She's in the law library, right off on the side office there. When you walk into the reading room, it's that little office off to the right, behind the research librarians. And she is one of our best technologists. So if you have any questions, she sent me a link to a free ChatGPT email course, which I'm going to quote later, but there's a link on this slide. So when you get it in the PDF, you should be able to click on that. It sets you up for a little newsletter as well. So if you wanted to really dive into learning how and what ChatGPT is, and you've never used it before, that is a great resource that she recommended. Another really great resource is Lexis, and generally, and then Celine Conway in particular. I know you've seen Celine hanging around the law school at the Lexis table. If you haven't talked to Celine, she is a fount of information on everything research related, but in particular, Lexis is doing a lot with generative AI and sort of where it overlaps with what you need for research in particular. And so you're going to find that the future of legal research really becomes more sophisticated in the AI realm. And that is where Lexis and Westlaw too are doing a lot of work. But Celine is really great at sort of making sure that we have the most up-to-date information possible and the training on Lexis. So there's like up to the minute training. I'm actually going, unfortunately, to a training this week after I'm making this video. So I will have even more information for you in real time, almost every day. But check in with Celine. There are ways to make appointments with her, and she always knows, the very most recent things that are happening. So let's talk really quickly. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I know about generative AI before I send you off to the other resources that I have for you. But before I do that, I want to show you a few of the things that I've done on ChatGPT, and I'll actually let you see my ChatGPT account and some of the things that I've done on it. So in the meantime, what is ChatGPT? What are we talking about when we talk about generative AI? All that means is that it's artificial intelligence that has been designed to act and interact in a human-like manner. So if you have chatted with someone, which I'm sure you have on a text message, you know what it's like to go back and forth on a conversation with that person. So generative AI is meant to mimic that call and response type human-like interaction in a way that machines or algorithms have really not been able to do before. And so they've done a lot with predictive text. So predictive text is, when I'm saying this to you, like most people probably know this, but when you're typing a text or typing on your phone and you see that list of words underneath that are trying to predict what you're trying to say, a lot of times it'll think it knows what your next word is going to be based on the probability that someone typing what you're typing would probably have that word next. Well, this is a very sophisticated version of that, right? So even though ChatGPT results and AI seem like they're thinking or they're composing sentences. It's a very sophisticated, data-driven, statistics-driven, analytic, predictive text exercise where every word that comes after a word before does that because the probability is that that's what it'll do. They get the data for that probability by being fed it. They have to be educated on it or trained on it. They call it being trained. And so artificial intelligence doesn't work without an underlying set of knowledge. So it's not just pulling from the world. So one of the problems with ChatGPT up until very, very recently, like less than a month ago, is that the data that ChatGPT in particular was pulling when you asked it a question or asked it to look up, the answer to, you asked it to look up something for you, is that it had only been loaded with data up until September of 2021. And so if anything had happened after that date, it wouldn't know about it. And so it had only been trained on that. So you'll see certain artificial intelligence or generative programs that are trained their own way. So you could have an internal AI system that's designed just for a company to use internally for some sort of function that they only train with their own internal data. So these mostly are usually controlled. And so the idea that they're going to be in the future, and they're still working on it. So I think Google now, if you look at Google, a lot of it'll give you, or Bing gives you sort of the option to do a more generative AI type search. The theory is that it's being trained on the internet. So it'll do a full internet search. But ChatGPT was not doing that. It was pulling just from sort of a closed universe of data that it had put in there. The link that I have on this slide is from that ChatGPT course that Latasha had given me the link for. So one of the things they give you when you sign up for that is this link to a bunch of slides in Dropbox. So even if you don't want to sign up for their newsletter, here's a shortcut link to one of the things that you can be sent if you wanted to just skip that part and just click on my link. And there's some really good step-by-step descriptions and explanations of how all that works in those slides as well. Okay. So what I would definitely suggest, if you haven't already done it, is to open up ChatGPT. And it's, if you Google ChatGPT, it'll get you to the right page. But technically, it's under OpenAI's website. So it's chat.openai.com. That's the place where ChatGPT lives. And it does ask you for a email address, and it asks you to create an account. That is so that you can go back and access your chats or conversations, they call them, because you're not, it feels like a search engine, but you're actually chatting with it. So if you don't want to use an important email, you can use a throwaway email, or make a free one. So make a free Google one that you want to use, so that it's not cluttering up your other ones, or you don't want it to know who you are or whatever. You don't have to, but it's been fine for me. I haven't had any problems using my my email to open up an account. You'll see this in some of the other reading, but a lot of the issues with ChatGPT, in addition to it being a machine, what comes along with that are the word hallucinations will come up. So if you hear the word hallucination, that means that it has given you a wrong piece of information. And that could be that it's because the data that you were looking for is not included in the training that it was given. So maybe it was after the 2021 date. We'll see what happens now that it says that it's been updated past then. But I will tell you that I just got wrong answers. So I actually was trying to pinpoint a quote from a character in a movie. And I know the movie very, very well, so I could tell when it was wrong. And I said, what are all the quotes by this character in this movie? And it was giving me really, nonsense. So sometimes it's just wrong. So that's one of the things that a lot of people have a problem with. Now, I feel like in the future that's going to be corrected. They're going to be finding ways to fix that. I think ChatGPT 4, which is not as public, it costs money, and I think only certain people are using it, is much better. So I think for the public, a lot of things are going to be improving. But for the right now, if you're using this free version, be careful because it gets a lot of stuff wrong. You can ask it about tone. You can say, write me a paragraph describing, write me a speech welcoming people to such and such event, and make it grateful and lighthearted and humorous. And it will do that. It will put things in it. Now, if you um, ask it for something very, very long, you will find that the things that they make humorous, or the things that they put in for tone, the types of words they use and the types of phrases, will start to repeat. And you'll start recognizing that they're using, it's very much a machine inserting things that it's been programmed for our ear to recognize as humorous. If it's very short and you're only using it a little bit, then it's fine. But if you use it a lot, you'll see that it does become kind of repetitive. The other thing you have to watch for is bias. There's been some studies and already some writing on, and there's actually another training that I'm going to on this coming up as well, whether the training that has gone into both ChatGPT and some of the other derivative types of technologies. There are, you've probably heard of the ones that will make pictures based on art, right? You can say, draw me a picture of a unicorn with a soccer ball in the style of Picasso, right? A lot of those kinds of things are all pulling on pre-existing images and imagery, and maybe pulling some bias through that was already there. So just watch for all of that. Obviously, watch for whether whatever is being generated is what you want when you generate it. So those are the things to watch for. But I'm going to show you a few ways that I used it. In the meantime, what I'm going to do after I'm done here is turn you over to one of two other sources. One is an ABA podcast, and it's just from last July. Use of generative AI in the law and their ethical rules. Not the least of which is making sure that if you use generative AI to do your research, that you do check it. And even though that's the point of it, I will repeat it for everyone in case you don't listen to that one, because I'm going to give you the choice. You can do one of these. Just check it. Don't assume it's right, because it is your responsibility, and it is no defense to yourself when you are, you have an ethical obligation to practice competently, and it is no excuse to say, well, I got it off the internet, or I got it from generative AI and I assumed it was fine. We all assume that it's not fine. It's still your work. So that's only a little fraction of what he has to say, but definitely that's part of it. So that's something. The other one, this is a little bit of a shameless plug because I am in this video, but this is a webinar that we did back in May, and myself and actually one of our alums from UB and two other attorneys joined. This is a very popular webinar series, actually, with Bonnie Graham. It's not just legal, but she happened to pick a bunch of lawyers to talk about the future of attorneys in AI. Really interesting. Apart from you can hear me anytime, but I want you to hear what some of the other attorneys have to say. Really, really great comments about where they see AI going in the legal profession. So those are the two other sources. So what I'm going to do is now take you to, I'm going to show you some things that I did with myself with ChatGPT. And some of this was just me fooling around, just to see what it could do. and what would happen if, if it was going to be good or bad, or if it would work. And I encourage you to do the same, even if you've never used it. Now, I'm not assuming that you've never used it. Maybe you have. I would love to know. If you use this all the time, what are you using it for? So this is my account. This is my private email. I've had it since before I was married, so you don't recognize the name on it. But I use that email. I've been using that email for, I think I said Yahoo email from the 90s. So yeah, I've been around a long time. One of the things, I have a friend who actually publishes the Birdwatcher magazine, Birdwatcher's Digest, and he really wants Gary Larson to submit a cartoon to his magazine. So he was asking me if I had any ideas, and I thought, you know what would ChatGPT tell me to do? So one of the things you can do in ChatGPT is it says send a message. This is where you put your request in around here, right? But I had already done it. So when I sent the net message, I sent, how do I get Gary Larson to submit a cartoon to Birdwatcher's Digest magazine? And in this answer, which came up in seconds, you can see it came up with some suggestions, but it also kind of had some underlying research that I didn't have to go do. So it kind of looked up to see who he was, told me the name of his comic strip, told me who his publisher was, and then came up with a couple of other, it wasn't just, do some research about Gary Larson. It sort of had some intuitive ideas about what to do. So his website has a contact form, it found out, that I didn't have to go look at. Alternatively, I could go find somebody else. It said. Now, none of those seem to be things that were working. The other thing that you can do if you really don't like the answer is you can regenerate the answer. As of my last update, right, says he's very private. This is updating it since the last time I asked. And it's giving me an updated answer. And here's some other ideas that it didn't give me before, right? So engage with the Farside community. It didn't tell me that before, but that's cool. Contact them. Now this doesn't realize that I'm already in contact with them, but that's okay. And part of it is just leave them alone, which, I think is kind of a nice thing, even though you're a computer, for you to come up with. The other thing that I did is that I asked it to write me a letter asking Gary Larson to submit a cartoon to Birdwatchers magazine or Birdwatchers Digest. And this is what it gave me. I did not give it any kind of description except to say persuasive. I could have put in something that said humorous or deferential or any number of things if I wanted to have it to help me with tone. This is not something that I gave it any other research for. So when it says, as you may know, Birdwatchers Digest is dedicated to celebrating the beauty and wonder of birds. It's read by thousands of bird enthusiasts. It pulled that on its own by probably pulling whatever was fed from the web in 2021 about Birdwatchers Digest. And it made it kind of personal, right? So what I would do with this, I sent it to my friend who's the publisher and said, here, do with this what you will. He wrote his own letter at the end of the day. But this is something that then I would probably take and edit, right? I certainly would not just copy and paste this and send it off. I would use my own judgment to decide. But these are a couple of interesting things that I did early on when I was trying to figure out what to do. Couple other things that you can do brainstorming. So we were looking at possibly trying to get an externships conference to decide to do their conference next year in Buffalo. So I asked it to help me write a proposal for why they should be there. And so it started to give me a list of reasons why Buffalo was a great place to have a conference about externships. And that was kind of good brainstorming for me. Obviously, the proposal that I was writing did not look like this. And I had to write it in a completely different way, but this was kind of interesting to get my brain flowing and to sort of start thinking about some of the things that I was going to have to talk about. It was a pretty short list, right? I could have regenerated and see if I could come up with more. One thing that was also interesting that I did was, this was kind of an experiment too, because it was something that I wanted to do, but I also wanted to see if this could handle something like this. So I was in the summer looking for a way to get a bunch of site visits done, because I have to go visit the sites where you're placed over the summer. So I asked it to write me a plan for making site visits around town to the different sites. And so this is what it did. All I did was say was write me a plan. So then it gave me a week 1, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Week 2. As it turns out, the timing doesn't really work for these. It's a little bit of a quick turnaround for some of these things, and it didn't quite hit the mark for what I would need to do. But on the other hand, it was kind of a good way to get me started on thinking about, okay, this is one way I could structure a plan for myself, and this is what I could put in there. So those are just some ideas. You can see some of the other things that I have done over here. One interesting thing for those of you who are cooks or crafty is that I did actually ask it, what can I cook with bell peppers for people who don't like peppers? And I did have it help me write a crochet pattern. So in addition to also writing a syllabus for legal seminars. So those are some ideas, some ways that I've played around with it. There are a million other things that you could do. AI, I have heard from listening to other tech podcasts, has been used to take someone's blogs over many years and condense them into a book. There's all kinds of things. So this is just to get you thinking, and I will turn you over to the other resources for this week. The assignment this week will be a little bit of reflection on what you think, and I'm going to ask you to open up ChatGPT and try one thing and tell me what you think. Tell me what it was and tell me what you had to do to change it, or whether you thought it was worth your while and why. So this is not me asking you to start using ChatGPT. I just want you to try it once, and so that you have something to an experience to look back on. All right. So thank you, and I will see you next time.